Hello, I'm Dr. Mikey Mewborn, and this is Leadership Development. Today, we're looking at the topic Leadership Impacts Everyone. Now, what we're focusing on is the people that are around you within your organization. And so, if you work in a church or serve in a church or a nonprofit, or if you work in the secular world in some corporate job, whatever it might be, what you do impacts other people. And so you need to be careful to put forth the leadership characteristics that are so important for having a great organization and also being a great leader in that organization. We're going to look at some of those things today. It's so good to be with you. Let's begin our study. Hello and welcome to Leadership Development. Today we're looking at the topic Leadership Impacts Everyone. It's so good to be with you. Let's begin our study. I want to start by looking at this quote by Sheryl Sandberg. It reads, "Leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence." This is one of my favorite quotes when talking about leadership as influence. What we do in the lives of others in their presence is so important, because when we're no longer able to be with them, the influence that we placed or the influence that we had on them doesn't have the power or the strength to continue on after we're gone. And I think that's a great way to look at it. So let's look at it one more time. Leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and then making sure that impact lasts in your absence. Now, as we continue on, here's another great quote for us. "I serve with honor on and off the battlefield. Uncompromising integrity is my standard. My character and honor are steadfast. My word is my bond." It is important for us to see a creed like this, because this is the type of person who has what it takes to continue when other people will pull away. We need to uphold what is right with integrity and honesty and forthrightness and being steadfast in everything. Wonderful, wonderful quote there. 8 ways a leader's behavior impacts the bottom line. And this is by Inc.com. Number 1, calm is contagious. People like to feel that they're in the presence of peace, or they feel like things are under control. That's very contagious for most employees or most volunteers in an organization. Number 2, integrity as a guiding principle. People need to know that the leadership is filled with integrity and honesty, and they are speaking the truth in all things. They're transparent, they're upright, and they're doing things for the best of their employees, and not just themselves, not just the bottom line necessarily, but being a person who does what they say and they say what they do. And so that's what you're looking at there. Consistency is key. People are looking for consistency in an organization. So when you think of an employee, they're looking for consistency, because if they feel that that's not a part of the MO of an organization, they will quickly jump ship, if you will, because they don't want to be a part of something that's sporadic or erratic. And so they're going to be very careful with that. Then number 4, trust is a must. You must be able to trust people, because if you can't, where does that leave you for the future? That's why most relationships fall apart, is because of a trust issue. Number 5, empathy shows compassion. When we let other people know that we understand where they are coming from, and we kind of work with them through that, it's going to go a long way. So empathy, trying to see where they're coming from, also feeling what they're going through. It's always good for an organization to have a leader who can empathize with the ones that are under him or her. And the reason is because it makes you feel like you're in something together, or you've gone through something together. Empathy shows compassion. And then number 6, be the example. One of the great ways a leader's behavior impacts the bottom line is that when that leader is truly living out or being a living example for other people to follow. And that's very helpful. Number 7, protect the team. It is so important for employers or leaders of an organization or pastors to protect their team. One of the great, I guess you would say, insights for marriage counseling is to teach a couple that they're on the same team. No matter what is coming at them, they need to realize that they're on the same team, that they're after the same goals. They want to accomplish the same types of things. And so, with that being said, it's important for them to realize we're in this together and we need to protect one another and do whatever it takes to do that. And then, number 8, communication is like oxygen. The more that we communicate and the more clearly that we communicate, the better it is for everybody. You feel like you're not choking, you feel like you're not having an asthma attack or something like that, but instead you can breathe and you can relax because you know what's expected of you and what the organization is doing. That's key to a strong organization. I like what Brent Gleason had to say about all this. As leaders, we make a conscious decision to lead well or not, to pursue perfection or not, to always be improving or not. Our behavior does impact our company's bottom line. It's up to us whether that impact is positive or negative. So Brent Gleason is writing this article, giving us these different ways here that are so vital for leaders to know so that they can improve the bottom line. But he makes it clear here, you are going to make an impact, but is it going to be positive or negative? And that's why this article is so good for us, because it's helping us to see those pitfalls or those great ways of thriving as a leader. Leadership Style and Organizational Impact by Michael Germano. He gives us some examples of different types of leadership styles. The first one is autocratic leadership. Autocratic leaders are classic do as I say types. Typically, these leaders are inexperienced with leadership thrust upon them in the form of a new position or assignment that involves people management. He's saying there's a lot of pitfalls to this. We have to be careful to not fall into this leadership trap that is that any one of us can fall into. So we have to be careful with that leadership style. There are people out there like that, but we have to understand there's ways to work with them and encourage them and strengthen them and make sure that they understand the leadership style that they're producing. Next one, bureaucratic leadership. Bureaucratic leaders are usually strongly committed to procedures and processes instead of people, and as a result, they may appear aloof and highly change adverse. So when we think about the bureaucratic, these types of leaders create and rely on policy to make organizational goals, policies drive execution strategies, objectives, outcomes, all those types of things. And the bureaucratic leaders are most comfortable relying on stated policies in order to convince followers to get on board, things like that. And so the policy is kind of dictating the direction. And that can be okay, but that's not really leadership as much as it is an ability to read. That's almost readership, not leadership. And we need to have people that are in front of us setting the example and bringing influence and change into the lives of others. Democratic leadership. Instead of one defined leader, the group leads itself. Now, this sounds really good, and nations are formed to be democratic nations, right? But it really doesn't play out very well when all these people are in charge. And instead, it creates problems a lot of times because nobody can agree on certain things. So you have major issues. So while democratic leadership sounds good in theory, it often gets bogged down in its own slow processes. And it just takes a huge amount of effort to get anything through. Another form of leadership is charismatic leadership, Michael Germano says. And he said this: charismatic leaders have a vision as well as personality that motivates followers to execute the vision. As a result, this leadership type has traditionally been one of the most valued. Charismatic leadership provides fertile ground for creativity and innovation and is often highly motivational. I think this is what many people claim would be the great leaders of today. The people that have the great personalities or the strong personalities, well known, they're likable, people want to be around them, they seem like they're always generating activity and excitement. And so we think because a person is a people magnet and they can draw people to themselves, that means that they're a great leader. But that's not necessarily so. They might be charismatic and they might be winsome and they might be able to get people on board. But that doesn't mean that they're actually strengthening other people or developing leaders, future leaders, or actually developing a great organization in general. And so there's some pitfalls to this as well. Even though these are great people to have on a team and they can build the excitement that's needed, it might not be the most effective way to build a strong organization over time. Situational leadership. Situational leadership theory suggests that the best leaders constantly adapt by adopting different styles for different situations or outcomes. So it just kind of depends on the situation. This is really good in some ways because these types of leaders can adapt quickly, but they constantly adapt. And the problem is that if you don't have the consistency in going after what is your responsibility, but instead you're always adapting to the situation, you may just live in a constant sense of uncertainty or place of uncertainty. So you got to be careful with that one. Even though it can be really good, you got to be careful. Transactional leadership. This can be a good thing as well, but it can also be a very dark form of leadership. The wheeler dealers of leadership styles. Transactional leaders are always willing to give you something in return for following them. It can be any number of things, including a good performance review, a raise, a promotion, new responsibilities, or desired change in duties. So many people thrive on transactional leadership. It's this idea, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. I'll scratch your back if you scratch my back. But it's the style of a payment. It's getting something for doing something. And that can be okay at times, and it's understandable, right? We're always wanting to work with people and the give and take type of relationship. But if you live that form of leadership, that's just constant business deals. That's not really transforming people. That's not really strengthening them. That's not really growing them and encouraging them to take off and become great leaders in and of themselves. So the best form of leadership is transformational leadership. Transformational leaders seek to change those they lead. In doing so, they can represent sustainable, self-replicating leadership, not content to simply use force or personality, charismatic or bargaining, transactional, to persuade followers. Transformational leaders use knowledge, expertise, and vision to change those around them in a way that makes them followers with deeply embedded buy-in that remains even when the leader that created is no longer on the scene. Transformational leaders represent the most valuable form of leadership since followers are given the chance to change, transform, and in the process develop themselves as contributors. Transformational leadership goes along with another type of leadership, which is simply called servant leadership. It's someone who serves by example and they're showing people what to do, and that person can take what they've learned by watching and growing under somebody else, and then they go forth and do it. That's a very strong style of leadership that Jesus was speaking about and showing the disciples, especially in John chapter 13, where he washes the disciples' feet. But he also empowered them to go and change the world. And that's the transformational aspect of what Jesus Christ was doing. So when we think about what Christ was doing as the discipler, the master teacher on the earth, and then giving them the Holy Spirit, he was transforming them from the inside out so that they could go and accomplish all that God had called them to accomplish. All right. Now, I think one of the great transformational leaders that we've ever seen is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He said, a genuine leader is not a searcher for consensus, but a molder of consensus. Oh, great quote. Speaking about a genuine leader, a transformational leader, is a person who's not always looking that everybody's on the same page, but is getting everybody onto the same page, getting everybody where they need to be. I love that. Now, in order to do those types of things, you have to somewhat control the narrative. And I'm going to show you a slide just in a moment that'll help you understand this even more. But it's so funny what Mark Twain said. He said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Now, I think this is funny because I do like to fish and I do like to play golf. And it's funny when I'm with these guys that are playing golf or they like to go fishing and all that kind of thing. They tell these crazy stories. Everybody has these stories. I caught this many fish, or I caught the fish were this big when I caught them, or I played this well at golf. I'm thinking, you have never played that well at golf ever in your life, maybe in your dreams. But hey, why would we let the truth get in the way of a good story? And this is what movie makers do. They say this is based on a true story. This movie's based on a true story, but really they had all this other stuff in that can make the movie more enjoyable to watch because all those things really didn't happen, but they can say the main part of it or the main themes of it are part of the true story there. So that's what you're looking at there. But a definition of a narrative, a story of account of events, experiences, or the like, whether true or fictitious. So a narrative can be either true or fiction, truth or fiction. So you gotta, if you're gonna try to be a great leader in an organization, you gotta be able to control the messages that are going out there. So you gotta kind of control the narrative. People love stories, therefore leaders must be careful to remain honest and control the narrative. The message is as powerful as the mission. And that's a great point to go into this next slide with. 5 messages leaders must manage, given to us by Harvard Business Review. Number 1, organizational structure and hierarchy. It is vital that employees at an organization know what the organizational structure or the org chart, what it looks like, who's over who, or the hierarchy of the organization, how it's run. Because if you don't know who you report to or who reports to you, you're going to have a lot of problems in the organization. And churches struggle with this all the time because there's not a good structure out there or org chart for them. And so that's something that needs to be explained and expressed. Number 2, financial results. Let people know what's going on in the organization. Even if they're not as appealing as you would want or becoming as you would want, we need to let people know where we are so that they can either, number 1, be praying for the organization, be celebrating what's going on in the organization, or maybe even just work harder, help out in some certain areas. The next thing, number 3, a leader's sense of his job or her job. And what we're looking at there is the idea that a person knows his or her responsibilities. They know what they need to get done. Number 4, time management. You must communicate how people are to use their time and what's to be done to make their lives more efficient and their work. So that message has to be clear. So you got to let people know where the organization stands there. And then the corporate culture. Culture is not created because someone says so. It's not because someone declares it. It's created when you bring people into an organization and put expectations upon them, and then do they rise to those expectations? So that's what you're looking at there, but you're trying to help them see that they are working together to accomplish something great in an organization, and that's what you want for good corporate culture. Let the corporation drive that narrative, that message, and that's the way you're going to see success. You're going to see those big wins that you want to see. And then I want to end on this quote. Your impact on the world is significant whether or not you are aware of it, and even whether or not you desire it. As you can see through this quote, it is so important that we realize that we are making an impact in this world. The question is it positive or is it negative? We may not desire it, we may not really want it, but we are doing it. So we need to make sure that it's positive. Well, this has been Leadership Impacts Everyone. Good to be with you. God bless you. Bye-bye. All right, that concludes our study today about leadership impacts everyone. As you can see, it matters how we live and what we do in this life. Whether it's in our public life or whether it's in our personal life, what we do really affects others. So we need to be careful to make sure that we're living lives that are pleasing to the Lord and also honoring to the Lord. But in the same way, we need to make sure that we're treating others with love and respect as well. The Bible makes it very clear that we need to think this way, we need to live this way, because it does matter. It's been so good to be with you today. God bless you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.